What's happening, guys? Charles Salisbury here. Thank you so much for joining me as ever. Today we're going to answer the question, what hair type do you have? I'm going to break it down into a series of tests that are dead easy for you to do at home, and they'll give you an unequivocal answer that you can then take forward to help you in your next haircut, colour, product buying, anything you do with your hair. This information is going to help you. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's get cracking. First of all is your hair texture. This is what your hair is doing. So you may have seen a diagram that looks a little bit like this. For those of you who haven't, it's basically the categorization of hair from 1A to 4C. 1 being straight, 2 being wavy, 3 being curly, 4 being coily. A, B, and C is the stages. So you've got a little bit more, bit more. I don't like this diagram for a couple of reasons. One, I don't think it paints a good picture of your hair. It doesn't give you the full image of what your hair's doing in different parts. I also just think it's a very strange way of working. So if 1 is straight, 2 is wavy, 3 is curly, and 4 is coily, why not just use those words? And then, like I say, instead of having A, B, or C, why not just have a little bit more and vary? It makes no sense. If I was to say my hair's a bit wavy, that is a bit more all-encompassing and a little bit using terminology for the sake of it. So what we're going to do is scrap that old way of thinking and think of our hair holistically. Think of it in a complete picture, what it's doing in all aspects of it, rather than just whether it's wavy, curly, straight, or whatever. So to work out your hair texture takes 2 tests. The first test, probably one you've seen before, is to get a strand of hair from your head after it's been shampooed and conditioned. The reason why I say from your head, it shouldn't be from a brush, because when you're brushing it, the hair can become stretched, damaged, or snapped, which won't give you a clear picture in the long run. Putting it on a piece of paper with 0 product. So you've shampooed, you've conditioned, you've taken it out, you've put that piece of paper, you've put that piece of hair on paper, sellotape one end of it down so it's free to move on the other side, and then have a look at what it's doing. See where it waves, see how often the bend of the hair is. You will almost undoubtedly have a little bend throughout your hair, especially if gravity's not acting on it. So you'll be able to see how far or how strong that bend is. It could be like a super coil, or it could be just a couple of bends. Now what we're gonna do, and a lot of people don't do, is let that dry. Wet hair and dry hair have different states, and by not doing anything to it, you're gonna see whether it shrinks up a lot or whether it stays the same. And this is going to be really important when it comes to your haircut. You notice a lot of coily hair or very curly hair will be a lot longer when it's wet than when it's dry. So you don't need me to tell you, if you have that type of hair, that if you cut too much of it off, you're going to end up with that jump being so much more pronounced. So it's really good to see what it's like in a wet state and what it's like in a dry state. The second test is obvious, but people don't really think about it, is what your hair is doing in contrast to what it's doing without gravity, where it's just lying flat on a piece of paper, is what it's doing as a whole on your head. To really look at it and see where the bends are. So for mine will be around here, but I know that's because I've worn my hair back behind my ears and it's bent around here. So really discovering where the bends are on the hair, if any, if at all. So if your hair's bending on paper, but collectively it isn't, you know that the force and the weight of gravity isn't going to affect you too much. So for me, for example, my hair has about 3 bends throughout it. Maybe more, maybe a couple, maybe less, but around that kind of thing. Whereas if I have it all together and the weight of gravity, you can see my hair is pretty much straight. So this goes back to another reason why I don't like this categorization of 1A to 4C. It doesn't look at things completely. It kind of puts you in a box, and your hair isn't like that. The second reason why I don't like it, it's very important, is with the test that I'm showing you what to do, it means you can take multiple pieces of hair. So a few of my clients and a few people I know will have curlier hair on the bottom or straighter hair on the top, or vice versa, or the front is very curly, or whichever way around you have it, it means that you can take multiple strands throughout it. So the back of your hair might need a different finishing product or a different conditioner to the front of your hair. You might only need a mousse or a volumizer to put it around here, because you might have quite wavy thick hair here that's just going to give you more and more volume throughout your profiled silhouette here. So by knowing these things, by taking it from different parts, checking our hair properly and thoroughly, and then contrasting that with what the hair's doing on our heads as a whole, we'll be able to have a much better picture for how we can style our hair. For hairdressers, this is invaluable for you guys. You cannot be just being like, oh, they've got wavy hair. It doesn't work like that. You need to see where the wave is, where the bounce is, and what it's going to be sat like when you finish that cut or when you finish that blow dry, for you to get the best quality haircut that you can for your clients. Part 2, thickness. Thickness of the strand is something we can't really do anything about. Basically, it involves the same test as the first one. We look at it, we put it down, and we just kind of look at it. You will see very quickly whether you have finer or thicker hair. The colour will be much bolder. If you're dark haired or a natural redhead, you'll see that the colour is much bolder in thicker hair than it is in thinner hair. Like I say, this isn't a problem, it's just a natural way it builds up. Where it becomes a problem and where it's interesting is when it's combined with number 3. Number 3, your hair density. Now, hair density and hair thickness often get used interchangeably, and they shouldn't. Hair thickness is the thickness of the strand. Hair density is the amount of hair per square centimetre on the head. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to start counting the amount of physical hairs on your head. That would be bonkers. But how you test for this is quite simple. You literally just part your hair, how dense it is on the parting. It's usually better to have a parting that isn't that. The light's shining on my hair, so if I look bald in that picture, that's why. It's not because I'm losing my hair. So by parting your hair, not on your parting, by parting your hair here or better on the back and getting a picture or a mirror, it's going to show you how many strands you can find. You will be able to see that it's physically denser if you have dense hair. Again, these are things that can change. So people have less dense hair around the front and around the hairlines than they will do on the back. Your densest part will usually be around here, because that's where you have the most physical hair. So it's good to always test around here. So if you take a section from top of the head to the center where the spine meets the skull here, center nape it's called, line through there, and then check the density that way. Then you'll be able to have a clear picture of what your hair's doing. Now, the reason why these two are interchangeable and the reason why they're super important to know together is that you may have always thought you had thick hair, but actually have a thick strand of hair. You may have always thought that you have one or the other or both. Now, these are super important when it comes to getting your hair cut. So if you, for example, you think you have thick hair, you might want to decrease the weight by layering it. But now, if you've done these tests and you've discovered that you have a fine strand of hair, but thick density hair, you will know that the hair is sat on top of each other in a lot denser fashion. So by taking away that weight by layering it, you're going to end up with a much larger shape because the weight isn't holding it down. So it's going to react very differently to somebody who has fine density hair and thick strands, because they can take a bit of weight out because the density isn't going to be stacked up. So if you have dense hair, it is more likely that you will have a voluminous outline, simply because it's hair sat on top of each other in a much denser way. I'm going to do a lot of cutting education in the future that will teach you all about silhouettes, layering, and how to actually put them together and what you should be looking for and to. But for the moment, it's very good to have these conversations with your hairdresser about whether they're looking at your density and thickness and discovering what it is. Sometimes we need that weight to hold the hair down. If you want, it's like a balloon with weights on. If you start taking the weight away, it's gonna rise up. Same with your hair. So a layered shape isn't always the best for thick hair. Again, we're kind of running before we can walk here, but by me talking about haircuts. But basically, it's good to have a clear understanding of what your hair's doing and what that means to you when it comes to getting your hair cut. Again, all hair's different, so when it comes to having haircuts, there's no subjected rule to it, so it's difficult to say if you have X, have X, because I think it's a bit constraining and it stops creativity, it stops movement, and hair changes throughout your lifestyle, which is something we're going to get onto again. Number 4 of discovering your own hair type. This is your elasticity. Now your elasticity we kind of touched on last week. If you missed it, check it out over here. So your elasticity is about the strength of your cortex. The cortex is the inner part of your hair, and by testing the elasticity is by testing its health. Now this test is super easy. You can do it with the same strand we used before. Basically, you grab a strand of hair, wrap it one strand one finger, wrap it one strand another, and then you gently pull it. And what you're looking for is how much the hair will bend. Hair has a natural bungee kind of effect. How it's created is like a spiral of keratin. And these microcoils mean that the hair has a little bit of flex and a little bit of pull to it before it will snap. It's not brittle. However, if the cortex gets damaged, it gets more and more brittle and you will see it snap. All hair will eventually snap. Like if I pull this a lot, it will snap. But we're looking to see what the bunginess of it is, the springiness of the hair is. If it's nice and if you tease it apart just gently and it springs back, then your hair is healthy. If you pull it apart and it just keeps coming like cotton wool, then you know that you've damaged it, and more than likely that'll do with chemicals. So that'll be like your bleach. You see it a lot with scalp bleachers, you see it a lot with relaxers or perms that are done badly. That elasticity has gone from the hair and it can't really be made, and it can't really come back. It's nothing to worry about, it's just something that you're going to have to cut off in the future. And you're also going to notice, if you do have this problem, you'll also notice every time you brush your hair, you're going to be losing a lot of hair, but it's actually just breakage. So if you have something like a scalp bleach and you'll notice you're losing loads of hair, it could be the elasticity of your hair or the damage in the cortex that's making it brittle and making it kind of fall out. So don't worry that it's coming from your scalp, it might be coming from your mid-lengths and your ends. If that is happening, just be super, super gentle with it. I did a video on the one thing that can improve your hair condition today. I'll post that up here or I'll put it in the link below. It's just about how to brush through, and it will teach the correct technique of how to brush through. That is super important if you've got bleached hair or highlighted hair, because your hair is in such a weakened state, or your hair can be in such a weakened state rather. So that's going to show the health of the cortex. How do we find out the health of the cuticle? Well, again, we touched on it last week, so this is tip number 5. And it is basically just rubbing your hair from end to root. So remember when we talked about root to end was flat and smooth? End to root is what we want to do. Now what we're feeling for is patchiness. If you have thicker hair or thick cuticled hair and you've done the test that we showed before and you've discovered that, oh, I've got thick hair, you've probably got rougher hair as well, just because there'll be more layers of cuticle around. So don't worry that you feel it and go, oh God, my hair's really rough. It could be just coarser, a little bit more cuticle. That doesn't really affect anything. Yes, it means you should be using more moisturizing products and you could be using a serum just to seal it off a little bit, but it doesn't mean that the hair's damaged at all. What we're looking for with the porosity test is patchiness, because if it goes rough, 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 little bits too smooth, rough, 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 smooth, that can mean that that's where the cuticle is broken off. And when it's broken off, it's not coming back. You're gonna have to reseal it. So you need to be definitely using a leave-in conditioner, and you should be avoiding heat, and you 100% should be avoiding bleach. You can use colour on this type of hair, arguably, depending on what colour it is. Please talk to your colourist because they'll have a better understanding of what your physical hair is like. Sometimes I've turned people away because the damage is gonna start because of the gap of the cuticle means that it's going to damage the cortex, and if it starts damaging the cortex, then you're going to get that snapping problem that we were talking about before, and your hair is going to very quickly come out of condition. If you colour your hair and you've got damage on the cuticle, your hair will also lose its colour very quickly because it hasn't got the door. Once the colour's in, it hasn't got the door behind it to close it. So if it has no cuticle, even though the hair's coming into the cortex, even though the hair's colour's coming into the cortex, enters the cortex if it's a permanent hair colour, but then as it's coming out will get stopped by the cuticle, which is sealed off by the conditioner. If that's not there, it will come out. So you'll see this a lot with bleach toners. If you have ashy hair, it'll come out very quickly, like we were saying last week. If you have red hair, it comes out super, super quickly. If you have that cuticle damage. I mean, red hair is one of the hardest to keep in the hair as well, or blue is technically, but to have a very vivid red is very difficult to keep in the hair. So what these mean is by doing the elasticity test and by doing the cuticle test is you'll know what colour you can go for. You know that if you have darker hair and you want to go white blonde, but your hair is breaking, quite brittle, or it doesn't pull back, it's not that springy, or there's cuticle damage on it from heat or environmental problems, you're probably not going to get the best conditioned hair if you want to go white blonde. Same with relaxers, same with perms. When it comes to cutting, you also might realise that you need a bit more cut off. If your hair's very brittle or you can accept that your hair needs to go a little bit shorter. I always think, always, if you're going to have long hair, it has to be in good condition. I think long hair is the default for a lot of people, but it really needs to look nice. It's better to have hair to here that's really nice condition than have hair to here in bad condition, because it just kind of looks ratty, the keratin's kind of gone, and it's not going to do what you want it to. It's never going to look nice and wavy, it's never going to get its shine back. It's nicer to just cut it off. So there we have it, 5 tests that you can do as a hairdresser, as a client, that's going to help you no end with your hair type. It helps you choose your product, it'll help you choose your cuts, your colours. Everything from there stems from what type of hair do I have. Now you see why I didn't like the categorisation of 1A, 4C. It doesn't give a full picture. We really need to be looking at everything as a whole to discover what our hair's doing. And then we can make smarter decisions. Like I used the example before of having very dense hair but finer strand will react totally different to a finer strand and very fine density hair. Even though if you're a hairdresser, they might complain to you that they both have thick hair. If you're a client, you might perceive that you have thick hair, but these two things are very different and they will react very differently to the cuts that you're going to have. They also react very differently to the products that you're going to be using. So if you have a thick density hair, you can afford to go a little bit heavier with your product than you probably could do if you had fine density, thick strand hair. You know if the cuticle is damaged, it's something you need to protect before your cortex gets damaged. You know if your cortex is damaged, you need to have it cut. And you know that if you have wavy hair, if you have curly hair in the back and wavy on the front, you're probably going to need a different product throughout it, or more conditioner through here, or vice versa, or whatever it is to get the best you can achieve. As we continue with these Monday videos, I'm hoping your education builds up and I'm hoping you develop a more rounded foundation to do with your hair. I want to keep these open to hairdressers, so hairdressers, assistants, people starting off in the industry, but equally open to clients and people who are interested in their own hair. I'm going to want to go through this so it solves a lot of problems. I find so many times sat in my chair in the salon, people will ask me the same questions, and it's just simply by not having this foundation of knowledge. At the end of the day, a lot of our knowledge for hair is the same as skincare. It comes from marketing campaigns, so it's not always trustworthy. So by having a base level knowledge, it will allow you to save money, save pain, save the agony of styling your hair and just hating it. I want you to get back into you loving your hair, and that's what these videos are all about. So with that, I say thank you as always for watching. Please like, subscribe. If you missed the first part of what is hair, please click up here. If you want to watch the first episode of my summer series, down here, and click the logo to subscribe. Give this a thumbs up. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.